While written language comes second nature to us modern humans, it wasn't always that way. Ancient people took centuries to develop a primitive spoken language, and then centuries more to learn to communicate via etched pictorials and cave paintings. The twists and turns one sees in the history of printing are close imitations of the twists and turns of human civilization itself. Let's get on with the video, where we will be taking a look at the what, who, why, where, when, and how of the long way humans and their languages have come. The pace of change of human society makes it hard to say for certain, but books may have been the greatest information storage devices in history. Granted, a flash drive today could hold the contents of multiple Renaissance libraries, but modern information technology simply hasn't had the time to outshine print media in terms of longevity. Early printing had a deep sanctity to it. Text itself was a sign that you were on or near hallowed grounds and should be respecting some royalty or a deity. The ancient Code of Hammurabi is a marvel of early cuneiform writing, as well as the very first code of laws known to have existed in a human society. Written in Akkadian around 1750 BC, the Code of Hammurabi is recognized by historians as an artifact that was deemed as much of a marvel by the ancient Mesopotamian people as by us nearly 4,000 years later. As with the Code of Hammurabi, countless texts and documents were pillars that granted authenticity to the social structure. This only worked in a society where barely anyone could produce text on their own, but it goes to show why people have honored written information for thousands of years. The earliest forms of writing and recording information can be traced back to the ancient civilizations of Sumeria and Egypt. The Sumerians used an alphabet of simple etchings on clay tablets called cuneiform script, dating back to the onset of the Bronze Age. Farther into the past, Egyptian papyrus scrolls dating back to the 29th century BC have been unearthed. The Roman Empire would carry the touch a gigantic step further, pioneering the binding together of multiple sheets of scrolls. The sheets would be papyrus or vellum, a material made out of animal skin, and bound together they would be called a codex. The codices of the Romans existed as early as the 1st century AD, and were the first step mankind took in the direction of books. Paper was developed in ancient China in the year 105 AD, and the Chinese would immediately get to work developing basic woodblock printing, and then making it more and more convenient to quickly print varying sequences of symbols as sentences. The Chinese are credited with producing the earliest printed book in history, a religious text titled the Diamond Sutra that was published in 868 AD. But books and text were still not producible and replicable enough for the amount of information humans want to store. The invention of the printing press in the 15th century by Johannes Gutenberg marked a turning point in the history of books. Gutenberg's movable type system allowed for the rapid and efficient production of printed texts, making books more accessible and affordable than ever before. The printing press would be man's close companion for centuries through the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and the early modern world. Typewriters are essentially small-scale printing presses, and their impact on modern information technology cannot be overstated. Even with the widespread acceptance of text and books in the soft, digital form, the world is still heavily reliant on physical paper books. Countless organizations around the world are invested in the preservation of physical books and the literary culture associated with them. Because value systems, laws, and culture have been borrowed from mysticism and religion for the largest part of human history, mysticism and religion have had a huge role to play in the flow of information and choice of media around the world. Religious texts, such as the Bible, Quran, and Vedas, have been central to the development of literacy and education in many major societies. But the role of religion came at a cost. The clergy would use texts to cast a shadow on free thought and speech. And because religious organizations were usually in bed with rulers of the time, texts put out by venerable figures could often be tools of political control. During the colonial era, religious authorities exercised censorship over books and print media in order to maintain their control over populations. This censorship was used to suppress nationalist and anti-colonial movements. While these influences are viewed as grim events from a social lens, one has to agree that these movements, however polluted, emphasized better and better printing and writing techniques. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, print technology, flow of information, quality of entertainment, and a newfound world culture would all simultaneously peak and contribute to a golden age of the printing press. As a consequence of the colonial era, huge parts of the globe were familiarized with European languages. People from around the world were eager to consume literary works of languages like French and English. Authors like Jules Verne, Victor Hugo, Mark Twain, Rudyard Kipling, Charles Dickens, and Arthur Conan Doyle gained massive popularity, and reading and possessing their works became a symbol of status and class. The print industry had much to gain from this, but it was not their sole market. Newspaper culture skyrocketed as news from even the remotest parts of the world was made accessible to common folk. World politics interested many minds all over the globe, and all flocked to print media to get their fixes. Accessibility to information has steadily risen with the development of writing and printing. But this doesn't necessarily have good implications for us as a society. It is difficult to judge, however, because where once only esteemed scholars, clergymen, rulers, and the wealthy could consume and produce information, literally anyone, anywhere can do it today. Where once the contents of books used to be sanctified, largely unquestionable and regulated by powerful echelons of society, information today is difficult to compartmentalize and shield from public questioning. But one could also argue that in the old days when writing a single page of text was a strenuous undertaking, the masses were not a battleground for information warfare like today. Despite attempts of censorship and control from religious bodies, most famously the Catholic Church, scientists and intellectuals have used print media for centuries to propagate a wealth of ideas to their students, peers, and the public. Books and the printing press have long acted as significant cogs in the machine to propagate culture and create oneness among the peoples of the world. Without these, it would be common to meet someone living in the next state, next county, or even next city, and be completely unaware of what life is like for them. The modern literary scene is characterized by lots of contradictory ideas getting published, which encourages critical and free thought in the public mind. A cascade-like dynamic is created by this phenomenon, which has been a contributing and driving force in our scientific understanding of ourselves, the world around us, and the universe beyond. From heavy, precious clay tablets that took long months to create to writing whole pages within minutes, humans have come a long and meandering way. Perhaps to the mighty intellectual, it is the normal course of human progress. But it is difficult to imagine another millennia-long venture that has had such drastic implications for our world and our future as humans. The mighty intellectual would do well to recognize exactly how turbulent the journey has been, and appreciate the freedoms we have today and owe to people who came centuries before us.